Disco may have been the hottest sound of the late 70s, but in the summer of 1979, it was facing a powerful backlash. In the midst of this tension, one of the genre's most innovative groups, Chic, released Good Times, an exuberantly joyful song which would prove that dance music could be creative, complex, brilliantly produced, and incredibly funky. While the song may not have been able to save disco, it undeniably shaped the future of popular music for the next decade and beyond. Creative artists continually look to Chic's innovative track for inspiration, influencing the development of new wave, hip-hop, and leading it to become one of the most sampled, inspired, and important tracks in popular music history. Hello there, it's Warren Hewitt here. I hope you're doing marvellously well. Welcome back to another episode in the series. If you haven't already, please subscribe. And if you hit the notification bell, you'll be notified when we have a new video. And of course, if you're into production, you can go to producelikeapro.com and sign up for the email list and get a whole bunch of free goodies. Chic founders Nile Rodgers and Bernard Edwards first met as teenagers in 1970. Both have come from the world of jazz, but very early on, they were interested in bringing diverse and eclectic sounds together. Rodgers explained, "My training is all classical and very heavy jazz. My teacher learned with Wes Montgomery. In jazz, you play whole solos all in chords with pretty harmonic movement, just as a piano player would. You get that from McCoy Tyner. You hear that there. I learned a complete harmonic style." In 1972, they formed a jazz rock fusion group called Big Apple Band. They quickly became a dance music-focused group, bringing in drummer Tony Thompson, as well as vocalists Norma Jean Wright and Alpha Anderson. By 1977, they were in the studio under the new name of Chic, recording their demo single, Dance, 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 Yowza, 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 which was engineered by a young Bob Clearmountain. Their self-titled debut album was released under Atlantic Records in 1977. In late 1978, they released their second album, C'est Chic, which contained the hit single Le Freak. While their previous two singles had hit number one on the US Dance Club Songs chart, Le Freak was Chic's first number one on the Billboard Hot 100 chart, in addition to being a huge international hit for the band. While The Freak is certainly one of the band's most important tracks, it is certainly not the only one. In 1979, they released their second number one hit, a song which would inspire the entire popular music landscape of the 80s, Good Times. Of course, the first thing everyone notices when they listen to Good Times is its infectious groove, combined with its joyous vocal refrain. Rodgers credits Kool and the Gang's Hollywood Swinging as the inspiration for the song.
My cousin is one of the people who started Kool and the Gang. When I was a kid, all I wanted to do was be like my cousin and be in Kool and the Gang. And when they wrote the song Hollywood Swinging, I was like, damn.
I remember.
Well, play Hollywood Swinging and play Good Times, bro.
Okay. Okay, this is Hollywood Swinging, Kool and the Gang.
Now check out the bass
All right,
line.
Sway in the morning. Nile Rodgers is with us. Oh, boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom.
So
Okay, now
it ain't the same bass line.
Boom, boom.
Right,
Oh, that's crazy.
so that's a perfect example of being inspired. So there is no doubt that Hollywood Swinging and Good Times are not the same song at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. But because I was so in love with Kool and the Gang and I was so down with Hollywood Swinging, this is a song I wish I had written. So what do? I go, well, damn, if I wrote Hollywood Swinging, it would go like this. And then I write Good Times. That goes, and I stay on that note. And then we go to there and we make a big deal out of that one and do.
While the songs are certainly different, they share a characteristic exuberance, as well as a bass line centered around a 3-pulse motif. Good Times opens with a shimmering keyboard glissando recorded in an unorthodox setting. Rodgers explained, "It's a gigantic Glissando, starting at the lower portion of the keyboard and going as far up as you can in that couple of seconds. And then we have the woman's bathroom at the power station, our famous studio that we recorded in, as the big echo chamber. We fed the signal into the ladies' bathroom. It was very reflective in there. It's all tiles and stuff like that. So it makes this swirly sound that's bouncing back and forth. So it's a cool thing. It's a subtle technique that winds up becoming this grand, big statement. That grand statement, performed by Raymond Jones on a Fender Rhodes keyboard, provides the joyous opening for the song's optimistic and upbeat lyrics. Good Times is centered around a classic dance party refrain sung by Fonzie Thornton, Alpha Anderson, and Michelle Cobbs. Good times, these are good times. Leave your cares behind. The verse lyrics break down the context of the joy a little more, indicating that these good times are much needed relief after times of struggle. The band even includes lyrics referencing Depression-era songs like Happy Days Are Here Again. Rogers explained that Chic songs tend to have a hidden meaning like this, and with Good Times they are trying to envision a better world. When Chic started, we were in the midst of one of the greatest financial recessions. We had gas rationing lines in America, and people said to us, how the hell could you write such a happy song when the world is so miserable? But you have to write about the world you want to see. The path I'm trying to carve out for Chic is always remember the fun. Sometimes an artist's greatest responsibility is not to reflect the world as it is, but to dream about the world you want to have. The song's optimism and joy is undeniable. The vocal chorus is exclaiming good times with an upward melody, the infectious groove, and the funky guitar part. The whole song radiates a sense of celebration, creating the iconic groove we find Tony Thompson's drums in tight alignment with the song's funky pulse.
Hey everyone, my name is Blair Cinta. I'm going to explain this beat, the beat to Good Times, played by none other than Tony Thompson. Incredible drummer, also played in a band called The Power Station in the 80s with Robert Palmer and some guys from Duran Duran, and also played on most of the Let's Dance record by David Bowie, also produced by Nile Rodgers. All right, this beat complements the bass very well. Let's talk about the kick drum. It goes like this. It hits on the first three beats. 1, 2, 3, 4. And 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And 1, 3. 1, 2, 3. And 1, 3. All right. Backbeat on 2 and 4. And on our hi-hat over here, we're just playing 16th notes with some kind of slinky accents to give it some bounce. The rest of the beat some bounce. So kind of like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? And the important thing about, one of the most important things about this groove is the balance between the hi-hat and kick. So the kick is nice and heavy. The 2 and 4 on the snare are nice and solid. And the hi-hat is played pretty light. It just like kind of sits in there. So if we play the hi-hat too loud, it's going to sound like almost mechanical or just heavy-handed. But this tune just kind of floats. So we want to play nice and light on hi-hat and then make sure, this is where people are dancing from, our kick drum. All right? Let's put it all together. 1, 2, 3, 4. And 1, 2, and 3. That's it. Very simple part, but it's got to feel good. That's really the whole thing. Just lock in with the bass player, make the hi-hat dance, keep the kick drum nice and weighty, and obviously make sure your pocket in 2 and 4 is really solid.
Nile Rodgers' guitar part is equally tight, providing as much rhythm to the song as the drums or bass. In 1991, Edwards told Bass Player magazine, "The two of us I consider a rhythm section, even without drums, because we keep so much rhythm going on."
So Good Times was played by Nile Rodgers on the Hitmaker, his 1960 Fender Stratocaster with a 1959 maple neck and a hardtail bridge, and strung with 009 gauge strings. He used the neck pickup and probably played it with a thin Fender pick. The classic, funky, clean guitar sound is most likely a combination of a de-eyed signal and a mic'd Fender Deluxe reverb amp, at least based on what he used to record Le Freak with. Nile Rodgers is a true guitar great and certainly one of the greatest funk guitar players of all time, and his infectious, propulsive rhythm parts have driven countless hits. Good Times is a perfect example of this. The guitar part is the hook of the song, so much so that the vocal line simply follows the melody of it. The whole song is essentially based around two chords, E minor 7 and A7. And over Bernard Edwards' iconic bass line, Nile Rodgers moves between E minor 7 and E minor 7 sus4. Then A7 sus4 and A13. To create this classic part. You'll notice Nile Rodgers is just playing voicings on the top four strings to cut through, and he's really emphasising the downbeats with the part that he's playing. Mixed with muted ghost strokes for added rhythmic impetus. And catching the second 16th of beat 4 in bars 1 and 3. Although he does introduce variations as the song progresses. Here's the whole part, played slowly. And here it is back up to speed.
And then, of course, we have Edwards' foundational bass line. In 2005, Rodgers explained that the bass line came from an instantaneous response to a long-standing desire to create a song with a walking bass line. Story goes that Bernard stumbled into the studio late after a night out on the town with Queen bassist John Deacon. With clear mounting at the board, Rodgers, Thompson, and one of the keyboard players were already going through the track. Bernard explained, "I started screaming all over the drums. 'Walk!' 'What?' I shouted. 'Walk, walk!' So then Bernard, he started to walk." But this is no regular walking bass line. Edwards broke into the funkiest walking bass line you can imagine. Thornton, who provided many of the male vocal parts for Chic records during this period, recalled being completely in awe of Bernard's groove. Nile told me he had a new record he wanted me to sing on. When I heard Bernard's bass line, it was almost scary because it was so new. I said, this is something special. While Chic also credit Kool and the Gang for inspiration, Bernard certainly made that 3-pulse beginning their own. And it is Chic's recording that inspired their immediate contemporaries like Queen in Another One Bites the Dust. Blondie in Rapture, as well as the nascent hip-hop scene.
What happened is when we started, we didn't know about hip-hop, believe it or not. We just didn't know. We lived in the studio. So what happened was we were producing Blondie, and they told us about these events called hip-hops. And I said, what is that? They said, well, what you do is you take something hip and you hop on it. And I was like, oh, okay. So I went to a hip hop, as they called it, and the thing that they took that was hip and they hopped on was Good Times. And all these MCs kept coming on stage,
That's crazy,
spitting rhymes to my song. And I'm sitting there watching this for like hours and hours. And that's when I met Fab Five Freddy and Future, all these guys. I'm like, what are y'all doing? Like, what is this? And then they started explaining to me about their culture and their rhymes and blah, 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 and how important Good Times was. And I was just, I didn't know what to make of it.
When Sugar Hill Records' Rapper's Delight came out with an almost identical bass line and a scratch sample of their string section recording, Rogers and Edwards were awarded co-writing credit on the track.
So the bass player on this track is Bernard Edwards. You would know him from his work, obviously, with Chic, also Diana Ross, Johnny Mathis, the list goes on and on and on. He's played on a bunch of number ones, including this one, Good Times, also Dance, 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 Le Freak, We Are Family, I'm Coming Out. And any time that a player like this comes onto my radar, I pay attention, right? Because when you've played with that many artists and you've been on that many hits and you've influenced hundreds of thousands, if not millions of other musicians for decades, well, you must be doing something right. Now, as far as the instrument choice, I'm actually going to go with a Stingray. Typically, when I play this in cover bands, I'm playing on a jazz bass, in which case I'll just go for that rear pickup. But the Stingray, I'm almost positive, is what Bernard used on this track. He was a prominent Stingray player. And this is one of the greatest bass lines of all time. It goes like this. And the reason why I think it's one of the greatest bass lines of all time, I have three criteria. Number one, it makes you smile. The first time I heard that song, granted, I was born in the 80s. So this song came out before I was born. I heard it on the Wedding Singer soundtrack. What was that, 97, 98? I was a brand new bass player, probably 10 or 11 years old. And bass lines at that point in time weren't as exciting as this one. And I remember hearing that from Rapper's Delight. The bass line was sampled. But I was like, oh, shit, that's a great bass line. It made me smile. I think that's what good bass lines do. The next thing is it's instantly singable. I'll tell students all the time, if you want to create a good bass line, when you're done playing it, the audience or whoever's listening to it should be able to sing it right back to you. I think another great example of this is, right, that Billie Jean bass line. As soon as it starts playing, granted, it's really repetitive, but you can't get it out of your head. It's such a good bass line. As soon as you're done playing it, you can sing it. Same with... like very smiley bass line. You can't help but smile when you hear it, and it's immediately rememberable. You can't get it out of your head. And this bass line has both of those things. And then the third thing that I look for is the groove construction. What are the mechanics of what makes this so awesome? And in this case, it's really, really simple. If you take a look, it's basically a 4-bar phrase. We got 1, 2, 3, 4. That's bar 1. Simple rhythmic pattern. 1, 2, 3. That's it. The next bar, it's melodically complex and rhythmically complex, especially compared to the first bar. So we got 3 notes, same one, simple rhythm, and then a scale moving up. Ba-da-dum, bum, 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 ba-da. We're at bar number 3, and we get this. Same rhythmic figure from bar 1, but a different note this time. And then the turnaround at the end is a little bit different every time. But we get basically the same formula. Simple rhythmic figure, a melodic line. Identical rhythmic figure, and then a different melodic line. The first one was stepwise motion, right? Scale moving up. It's a E Dorian, so we're in the key of D. And then the 4th bar, we get this kind of this leapwise motion. We're playing 6ths and 7ths. And then some sort of turnaround at the end. Another thing I like about this groove is it's really easy to improvise with and develop it and make it your own because it's got a little bit of everything already. There's almost nothing you can do to screw it up other than playing outside notes. The song does stay diatonic, but it's got simple rhythms, complex ones, bouncing off the E's and U's, stepwise motion, and everything in between. So really, you can almost do anything with this groove. And probably the most important thing about this bass line is the syncopation and when those notes go from being straight on the downbeat to pushing it over by 1/16th note. So right from the beginning, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, right? That note gets pushed over. Same thing with that one right there. And in my opinion, this is a genius decision, was to make the verse groove almost the same as the main bass line in the chorus, but it's slightly different. So that when you listen to the track, it sounds like the bass line continues all the way through, but actually it's a little bit different in the verses. And again, kind of like what I was talking about in the beginning, that's one of the things that I think makes it such a great bass line is the fact that you can't forget it. It's so singable that even when we change it and we come right back to it 20 seconds later, you're like, oh yeah, I know how this goes. And that's brilliant. So what's not to love here? He's a great bass player. It's a brilliant bass line. The whole song is pretty simple. It's over just about 2 chords. It makes you smile. And best of all, it is unforgettable. Pretty much everybody can sing this bass line right back to you after 15 seconds of listening to it. That's why I think it's one of the greatest bass lines of all time.
Good Times was recorded at the Power Station Studios in Manhattan, a new studio which had just opened its doors a year earlier in 1977. Good Times and their entire third album, Risque, was produced by Rodgers and Edwards, with the young Bob Clearmountain as the engineer. It was mastered at Atlantic Studios in New York. The single Good Times was released on June the 4th, 1979, almost 2 months before the release of their third album. It hit the #1 spot on Billboard Hot 100 in August 18th, 1979, and was the best-selling single of Atlantic's history up until that point. But more than being a commercially successful, massive hit, Good Times revolutionized the way people listened to music in 1979. At the height of the backlash against disco, they proved that dance music could be innovative, exciting, and funky, and lots of fun. After its release, major rock artists like Queen, David Bowie, and the newly emerging punk-inspired new wave artists like Blondie would be inspired to bring dance-centered grooves into their own songs. The song remains one of the most sampled songs in music history, and an inspiration for generations of musicians to follow. What can I say about Chic? I mean, that pairing of Edwards and Rodgers and Edwards, Niall and Bernard, I mean, what a team. When I was 16, I moved to the north of England. I left home early, and I moved to the north of England to a place called Carlisle, and I played in club bands for about 2.5 years. And we had a girl singer, and we did Sister Sledge and Chic covers. And if it wasn't for the fact that I have a broken wrist, I'd be performing this song for you in the video. I love Nile Rodgers' guitar playing. I love Bernard Edwards' bass playing. I mean, Niall has just gone on from strength to strength. He's producing now. He is doing incredible work. He's been doing incredible work since then. Bernard, unfortunately, we lost very, very young, which is very sad. What an incredible bass player, so unbelievably influential. And just to think they were, they're in their 20s then, just kicking down doors, making incredible music. And like we said in the earlier part in the video, the fact that they were so influential, I mean, every guitar player I knew had to learn how to play like Nile Rodgers. Every bass player had to learn to play bass like Bernard Edwards. I mean, it's just a fact. It was incredible. And I just highly recommend that you go back through Chic, you go back through Sister Sledge. We'll do more. We've got more coming out on this because you cannot overstate how important these guys were, this band was, these songs were. I mean, we did Another One Bites the Dust like a week or two ago, and we talked about how John Deacon was there in the inception of Good Times and how that dum, dum, dum on the E, he borrowed it. He also added to it and did something different, but that pulse, that 1, 2, 3 on the E, is in Another One Bites the Dust. We also then, a week earlier than that, talked about Another Brick in the Wall Part 2. And I spoke to Bob Ezrin about it, and Bob said that he brought Chic, the idea of Chic and the groove, and brought it to Pink Floyd into Another Brick in the Wall Part 2. He told me that the song was kind of a bit of a dirge until they put that 4 on the floor dance groove into it. So 2 of the biggest rock songs in all history. Go and look at Queen's catalogue. I think Another One Bites the Dust is like 2 or 3 most streamed song. It's over 1 billion streams just on Spotify. And then Another Brick in the Wall Part 2, massive worldwide smash. Both of them heavily influenced by Chic. So you've heard me say this hundreds of times before. And I know there's a lot of obsession about certain genres and cleverness and all this kind of stuff. And I get it. I understand. I understand where people have to like pinpoint something. But if you want to be great at music, either as an engineer or a musician, you want to blend your sources. You want to listen to other genres and you want to bring them together, because there are 2 bands, Queen and Pink Floyd, that took a Chic idea and put it into rock and had 2 of their biggest singles. So Chic's influence cannot be overstated. You cannot overstate how important this band was, how important Niall and Bernard are and were. Thanks ever so much for watching. If you've got other songs or other albums or other artists you want us to take a look at, please put them down below. Thanks ever so much. So long, farewell, auf Wiedersehen, au revoir, tschüss, adios, adio, sayonara, goodbye.